Wake up, rethink the status quo. When you get your money right, then you're the one who runs your life. Come build a wealthy spirit with Sammy and Michelle.
Money may not be best used to buy happiness, but perhaps a better use is eliminating unhappiness.
Michelle, I think Chris Janson, singer of the song Buy Me a Boat, would disagree. In this song, he talks about how if he had a lot of money, for example, if he had a rich uncle that kicked the bucket, or he was sitting on a pile like Warren Buffett, then he could buy himself a boat. He could buy himself a truck to pull it. He could buy himself a Yeti 110. That's a cooler, iced down with some silver bullets. We are referring to Coors Light here. And you might be thinking, like I was, why would you want to purchase all those depreciating assets? But many people are under the impression that buying things will make them happy.
I like the argument that he's making. That money can purchase things that would make you happy. Money is necessary. I'm a big fan of the Kanye quote, to bring in another song. Having money isn't everything, not having it is. But I agree. You know, maybe the boat. But really what you see is the problems that come from it. You got the boat. You bought the boat. Now you're actually buying more problems. Now you need the truck to pull it. Okay? Not sure why he needs the Yeti 110. Looked it up. It's about $500. This is how you know the people who write these songs are actually rich. Like, I wouldn't even know to want a cooler that fancy. Like, you could literally just go to Walmart and get a cooler. And
like, the styrofoam one has worked for me. Although I do have a Yeti coffee mug, and I could see how that would be ideal.
That is true. What do you reach for? But those were free. Thank you, Indeed.com, for sponsoring my mugs and a lot of my merch. I think that people still wonder, can money bring us happiness? And that's what we're going to dive in today. Not so much, can money bring you happiness? That's an age-old question. But can money actually eliminate unhappiness? We think so.
Let's get into it.
But first, you know what makes me unhappy? A week ago, sitting once again in the Dallas airport, flight delayed.
We are about 1 for 10 on successful flights here. I don't know what's happening.
We somehow got there 40 minutes early. I was like, so when it's July 4th and you're down to speed all the way over there so you can get to your barbecue on time, Mr. Pilot. I mean, I don't know if it's his fault. But the point is that our partner AirHelp is so great at eliminating unhappiness. Because here's the thing. Your flight gets delayed. In the US, more than 5 hours. This is true in the UK, Brazil. You have air passenger rights, and they will actually they'll put in the time, the energy to go and see if there's compensation owed to you, because the government is now trying to make sure that flights don't just get canceled because, you know, United or American doesn't feel like flying your flight that day. So check them out. AirHelp, link in our show notes.
Back to today's topic. Can we eliminate unhappiness with money?
What sparked this idea is Mad Scientist was reading one of his old pieces on his podcast, Happiness Through Subtraction. And it was a really interesting argument that he was making about how sometimes we use money to buy bigger houses, to buy cars, to buy things that we think will make us happy. But actually, there are a lot of times things are making us unhappy, and it's almost more reliable or more predictable to eliminate the things that are bringing us unhappiness. In his case, he gives an example. He moved to this house in Vermont in like a super remote area. It wasn't near anything him and his wife wanted, but they thought, affordable, we'll do it for a few years. Who cares? And it actually ended up bringing them a lot of unhappiness. They were depressed. They weren't able to see their friends. They didn't want to spend money on things that they would want to do because they were just so unhappy. And he found the value of money to be getting rid of the house, being able to say, you know what, let's cut this loss and move on.
It sounds like a familiar story, Michelle. We may have moved to the middle of nowhere so that I could make more money. And we were isolated from everything.
To be honest, a better deal. At least you got paid more and it was sunshine all the time. Though, very likely, Vermont was nicer. Trade-offs.
Hard to be depressed when it's like 120 degrees every single day.
You're either happy or toasted.
If you're unhappy, you won't notice. But that money did allow me to then escape the small town and not work for the past almost year, which made me very happy. I found this piece by Mad Scientist very relatable. And I did find that I used money to get rid of one of my biggest things that was my source of unhappiness, which was going to work every day.
Exactly. If you're in a toxic job and you have the ability to walk away because you have the financial security to make that decision, that's so powerful and a lot more predictable because you don't like your job. And if you eliminate your job, you might have other things you're dealing with, but you're getting rid of a major stressor. Sammy and I wanted to delve into some other examples, and I also wanted to introduce the quote that Mad Scientist is sort of pulling from here with this idea. So the origin is actually from Nassim Taleb. I think he talks about an anti-fragile and skin in the game, what he calls Via Negativa, the principle that we know what is wrong with more clarity than what is right, and that knowledge grows by subtraction. Also, it's easier to know that something is wrong than to find the fix. Actions that remove are more robust than those that add, because addition may have unseen, complicated feedback loops. So, back to Chris Janson, buying that boat, maybe that will buy him happiness, but it's unpredictable. Maybe he has to pay to dock the boat. Maybe it's a lot of maintenance. Maybe he has to get the truck to pull it, and he thinks, oh, now I need the Yeti 110 iced down with some silver bullets.
And maybe, like everything else that we purchase, we often return back to our baseline. On the other hand, as Nassim points out, we know what makes us unhappy. Today, we know the things that make us unhappy. We can't predict what might make us happy if we added it, but we know what would make us happy if we subtracted it. And money can sometimes pay to get rid of those things.
It's funny. Sammy and I were talking about what possible examples there could be. We're like, what would we pay for that could eliminate some of our unhappiness? And we came up with some good examples, but right before we hit record, we were like, wait, editing the podcast. We paid somebody to edit the podcast. That would remove a large chunk of time, our least favorite part of the podcasting process. And that, I think, eliminating the editing process, saving us time and energy, would be way better than paying to add something. An editor would be the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
Though, to be honest, I don't think the money is the problem. Maybe. I don't know how much an editor goes for. It's more about control and quality, but maybe that's something we should think about.
We're learning to let go.
True. I think we're probably closer to being okay with it than we were before. So that, I think, is a great example.
Another great example, debt.
Ooh.
As someone who has student loan debt, I can tell you that is a pain in my behind. And even though I love nerding out on student loans to the point where it's almost become enjoyable, I still would love for them to be gone. And yes, they'll be gone soon, but I am often tempted to just pay them off right now just so they'll be gone. Even though that will mean 8 years of my life are wasted, it is a very easy temptation.
I think your student loans are a great example because, let's say, paying them off now versus finishing off the 20 months you have working at a nonprofit. On one hand, you do know that just paying it off would bring you so much happiness because you wouldn't have that floating over your head. It wouldn't affect the work that you were looking for, all of those things. And at the same time, the remorse over the next couple of years, I just feel like it's actually it's more of a psychological thing.
It's totally psychological.
You would feel like those 8 years are wasted. You feel like, oh, maybe I should have just done it. 2 years from now, you're like, oh, I could have just worked at a nonprofit for 2 years. I don't know. But who knows? Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you would be just happy it's gone and you could move on with your life. We talked about this in the intro. I think leaving a job is so, so, so powerful, especially a toxic job.
I think this is the biggest way money can get rid of unhappiness.
Yes.
Usually, people's jobs take up a significant portion of their lives. And some people love their jobs, but some people find them okay or don't like their jobs. And I think many people would pay to not go. Even if they decided to still do some sort of work with their time, I think a lot of people would pay to get out.
It's true. Because if you have money, and this is where an opportunity like saving money, putting money into an emergency fund, getting to that place where you have that FU money can really be powerful. I think is the reason it drives people to save money, like the FIRE movement, the Financial Independent Retire Early movement, is because people are really motivated by this idea of having security to leave their job, which is truly such a luxury.
I think you bring up a good point there, because even having the money to leave your job, even if you don't leave your job, still makes you happy because you now know that you're not forced to do anything you don't want to do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, taking away the stress of, oh, I have to deal with this stuff I don't like is beautiful. And I think that's part of the reason we talk about these things, because sometimes it's not even just about leaving your job, right? Leaving your job for nothing. Sometimes it's the opportunity to leave your job and try something new, a new work, a new opportunity, and knowing that you can take a little bit of that risk and you don't have to depend so much on the devil I know versus the devil I don't, which I feel like is something we used to always say when we were working, because it felt like switching jobs, even if I don't like my job, it felt like switching jobs was risky because I don't know what I'm walking into.
Money can make it so that you don't have to live with roommates.
This, I think, is a huge one.
Yes. Michelle and I lived with roommates for a long time. All different kinds of people. Nice people. But when we decided we just wanted to pay to live with only us two, it was a blessing.
100%. Being able to live by yourself, huge luxury in a city like San Francisco, where rent can be so high. And luckily, Sammy and I get along with each other, but I've also lived by myself when I was in Austin. And when I was in Austin, that was actually the first time I did live by myself. I had spent, obviously, growing up living with people, my parents, my sister. I had roommates all through college. Not just roommates, you live in the same room with people for part of college.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until well into my late 20s that I finally had an opportunity to live by myself. And, oh, it's so nice.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It's so nice that despite the fact that I don't really have the same income as before, I do still feel like I would prioritize just living with you or living by myself over almost any other situation. Like, I would put my money first towards that. Even if it meant I had to go back to a job, because just having other people around, even if they're good people, having to think about them, respecting their boundaries, having to be on their schedule, having to talk to them about cleaning and stuff, I don't want any of that. The money, I'll throw money at getting rid of that problem all day, every day.
If I had more money, I would just move into the apartment next to us, and then we would each have our own apartment, and that would make me happy too.
See? Wouldn't that be lovely? That's what we're manifesting, being neighbors in this beautiful apartment of ours.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Though I do love living with you.
Ditto.
The truth is that you could have no money and be enlightened, right? Like we say, like if you have your Maslow's hierarchy of needs met, if you have food and shelter, those are the baselines to be happy, which I do think is true.
It's like Eckhart Tolle. He talks about when he became enlightened, he decided to live in a park for a year. Yes, homelessness. Eckhart Tolle was fully homeless and loving it for 1 year because he was in an eternal state of bliss. He wasn't all dictated by his thoughts, and, you know, he was remembering that heaven is on earth in every moment. Yeah, we can get to that, and in that case, we just want to pay to get rid of all the things that are causing us problems.
Well, in that case, you don't need any money because nothing is causing you a problem.
Yeah, that's true, and he was living in the park. He might have to pay, like, tickets for not being at the park at appropriate hours.
I'm not sure what the legal issues are around those things. It's true. Even Buddha walked away from riches to sit under a Bodhi tree. And look, we're not saying become enlightened so that you don't need money.
Although, if that's an option for you, probably you should go for that one.
If that's holding you back, please go for it. But it is a spectrum. There's something to learn from that, which is that the happier you are internally, the more happy you are with yourself, your baseline happiness, the less money you need. A lot of times, you know, when we talk about keeping up with the Jonases, when we talk about buying bigger houses and cars and whatnot, it's really about trying to satisfy this urge of being enough or being worthy or fitting in with people. And those are real problems. Those are real things that we deal with. And the happier you are with yourself, the less you're going to be tempted by those things. So maybe money can buy you unhappiness, but also if you don't have the money, you can also aim for enlightenment.
Takeaways.
Takeaways for this episode.
Money may or may not buy you happiness, but money can definitely eliminate unhappiness. And that might be a better place to start. If you have a few extra dollars coming in, you might want to start thinking about not, oh, what's the next thing I can buy? But are there certain things that are making me unhappy that I could actually eliminate and live a better life? A good place to look is like what's taking up your time, your energy. Maybe an example could be hiring a chef if you don't want to spend all your day cooking, but you want to eat better food.
You know, Michelle, this is why I like looking at my finances and seeing where I'm spending my money. Because one, I can stop spending on getting additional things that are not bringing me additional happiness. And I can then use that money to fund potentially getting rid of something like not having to work longer, or something like a chef, or having a place of my own, things that really do bring me joy.
I agree, Sammy. I'm much more motivated by that. And this reminds me too of what Dave Ramsey says when it comes to using money to quote unquote buy happiness. If you can reach your baseline level, I think this is super helpful. Because Dave Ramsey says we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. And it's so easy to get back into that cycle. So something to think about is maybe where are your spots of unhappiness?
And is there a way for money to get rid of that?
Community time!
Before we say goodbye, it's our community time.
We will have to spill over into next week's episode with community time because we have so many great comments from all of you. Please keep them coming. Send us an email with the newsletter you get from us. You can go leave a comment. You can reach out to us personally if you know. We love to hear if an episode resonates with you. BuildAWealthySpirit.com. First, for our episode, dependency is not a bad word. Shout out to Paul and Harris. They loved the latest podcast episode and said asking for help is huge. Huge one. Which I agree. Sammy and I both struggle with that. And when it comes to moving, they like the shared task list, which we use to divide and conquer. Which that was super helpful for us, Sammy. Just having a document where we could assign different tasks to each other and just know the other person was going to get it done.
Also, Paul and Harris, thank you for shouting out Michelle and her sabbatical course on your YouTube channel. We'll link to their YouTube channel in the show notes. If you haven't checked it out, Paul and Harris are some of the most interesting people, and they are the cutest couple, and it's just really, really fun to watch them.
Yes. You can learn something, and you can get to watch them in their funky little outfits and their funky little glasses, which is just delightful.
Also, shout out to Elle. Elle said she gave our podcast a listen, and it was so much more lighthearted than she thought it was going to be in a good way, which I love to hear, because I think personal finance can sometimes be a little boring and dense for others. So I like that ours is lighthearted.
Same. She said, congrats on creating something so awesome. And she said, wanted to send you this note to let us know it's seen, it's working, and we're doing great.
Thank you, Elle.
Thank you so much, Elle. That really means a lot to us. 100%. When you guys let us know that you're listening, when you send us mail, we have no idea, to be honest.
No.
So if you let us know if something's resonating, if you like it, share us a quick note. It means so much to us. It keeps us going every single week.
It really does.
Send us a message to buildawealthyspirit.com. That's our newsletter. You can leave comments there. You can send us an email there. We'd love to hear from you.
And most importantly, be sure to join us next week as we put down the rulebook and we rethink the status quo.